Hey everybody, I'm Zac.
And I'm Jesse.
And you're watching In Depth.
On Now You Know.
And this week we're sponsored by ecoware.us. So if you would like some of these cool new designs we've got here, along with a lot of other ones, head over to ecoware.us. All right, so we just got back from a very fun event, Jesse. Remember what that was?
Yeah, that was the Model Y event. And I just have to say, I just spent all of my energy, right? Flying to LA, going to this thing, trying to live stream it as best as I can, trying to actually maybe enjoy a little bit of it. Mm-hmm. We saw the car. It was great. And then I get home and I'm like, finally, I get into my own bed and I snuggle in and I open my phone. And the first stories I read are like, Tesla Model Y disappointing. People disappointed by Model Y to stock tumbles. And I'm like, what? Am I still on the plane and I'm dreaming and having a dream? No, for some reason, there's FUD about the Model Y. And I'm not trying to say that it's the most perfect car in the world, but it's probably like one of them. Yeah. I saw it, right? I touched it. I got to sit in the car.
Yeah.
And it's a lot like a Model 3. But here's the thing about the Model 3. It's the best freaking car in the world.
Right.
So you just made a slightly bigger Model 3. You just made a slightly bigger, just the best car in the whole freaking world. And yet every news story is like, oh, people are disappointed by the car. Why?
Okay, but you seem like you're surprised by this.
I am surprised. At this point,
You thought we had won?
At this point, for the longest time, it was like, oh, Tesla's in trouble because they don't have their production numbers aren't above 5K and no, there's no demand for the Model 3 and oh, they'll never be able to make the $35,000 Model 3. And it's like all those things have happened, right? It's one of the better selling cars in this country. It's they can finally sell the $35,000 version. There's a slightly better version than the $35,000 version for a little bit more money, like a good second option. There's no like big gap between the mid-range and the base model. Now you have this Model Y, which is a hatchback version of the Model 3. So like it should be basically everything you've ever wanted. It has optional seven seats and everything.
Yes, I get all this, but I think you're forgetting what we tell our viewers every week, which is that the shorts and the big auto and the big oil, they're the ones who pay for all the ads. They're the ones who pay for the mass media, so they get the story that they want. And they are not going to stop just because Tesla keeps beating everything they say they can't do. They're not going to stop. Whatever the next thing is, they'll be negative on that. They're going to FUD and FUD and FUD.
It's just insane. I feel like an insane person.
I know.
Okay, I went to this event. I saw the car. I was like, great.
I know.
Like, okay, yeah, maybe I wish that it looked slightly different, but I'm not going to be like, when I'm looking for a car for my family in the future, I'm not going to be like, oh, I don't want to buy that one. Like, I'm going to probably, like, that is a perfect larger family car than a Model 3.
This is the expected FUD story, okay? And that means that we've won. They have nothing else, okay? They can only say what we expect them to say, which is, gee, okay, let's think, Bob. What can we say about this? Nobody liked it. Good, run with that. Look, we're one of only 500 people in the world who have sat in it, okay? So unless you're one of those other 500 people, I don't think you even get a say in it yet, really,
right? Because
you've seen pictures of it, but we've been in it. And let's talk about what we experienced.
Right. On March 14th, both of us attended and live streamed the Model Y unveiling, and it was a great night.
And I just want to say, leading up to it, there was a lot of speculation about what else will there be?
There was definitely going to be something else.
There's got to be a flying pickup truck.
No, you were the only one who said that.
Well, I did that because I jokingly wanted to raise the expectations and show how silly it is.
There was a high expectation, and it came off of the semi-truck unveiling where they released the Roadster.
Right.
And it was probably the biggest surprise unveiling that you could do because it was a non-consumer product, the semi-truck, which was so all the journalists and everyone there was like, yeah, we're ready for a truck and we're going to see how it does and stacks up against the competition, blah, blah, blah. And then you get the fastest hypercar in the world, the quickest accelerating, it's going to be a magic car, and boom, they just unveiled it without anyone realizing that it was going to happen ahead of time.
Right.
Some people had speculated it, but everyone was like, that sounds crazy because I wouldn't possibly imagine it.
Well,
now we have this heightened expectation. We're all going in like, what's it going to be? We're going to see the pickup truck for sure.
And as we talked about yesterday on TTN, the thing that there was this thing that everyone missed, right? Which was the big secret thing. It was a quick second snapshot of what appears to be part of the Tesla pickup truck. So here is what that snapshot was, and basically we all in the hall missed it.
Everyone.
We were watching the screen. I think it appeared as a glitch to us, but I think it was just a few frames actually. Right. So thank you, Elon, for that little sneaky thing you did. Right. We'll talk about that later in the show.
But basically, we had no idea. We didn't know that we got shown a picture of the pickup truck.
Right.
So everyone at the event was kind of like, oh, that was it. People were almost everyone that we talked to, because we talked to a lot of people, everyone said, I kind of hope that they have a refresh of the Model S and X.
Right.
But I kind of doubt it.
Or,
everyone said
that the pickup truck will drive, onto the stage.
That was my hope, was that the glimpse of the pickup truck.
Well, you did get a glimpse of it
zooming across the stage.
Oh, you got a glimpse, all right.
We didn't get an actual physical view of it.
But I think we should keep in mind that all past Tesla reveal events, except for the semi truck, have been just that. Here's the Model S, here's the Model X, here's the Model 3, and that's what a reveal event should be, to show you whatever that new car is.
I think that they did a pretty good job going over the history of Tesla, because I think for a lot of the reporters there, it was the first, primer that they've ever gotten on Tesla that was complete. It wasn't just like so this one day, this guy named Elon, he's a billionaire, he just tweeted something, and then everyone got mad at him. Yeah, that's the only press school knowledge that the press get, is that there's this guy Elon, he's crazy, and that you shouldn't write positive stories about him. He actually was like, here is an underdog tale that we're telling you about,
and it was smart. Because let's keep in mind, most of the reporters don't know anything. Most of the world doesn't know anything,
and so anyone tuning in to watch this got a very good understanding of the history of Tesla and how it is absolutely gone past all expectations, and how it is, changed people's minds and the whole world, right? They showed quotes from magazines and newspapers,
that was really powerful,
of saying electric cars are never going to happen, blah, 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 blah. And then they showed, just 5 years later, those same, different magazines and newspapers saying VW switching to electric. Electric is the future. Very powerful to show that. He talked about all the different cars that they had, all of the different factories that they were working on, and they showed a picture of the China factory, which was very exciting. And then the Model Y drives out.
Yeah, and we were really lucky, because when we went in there, we didn't get a spot right in the center stage where we'd hoped to.
But we got front row.
Awesome. And we got slightly off to the right, which turned out to be just perfect.
The Model Y drives right up in front of us.
We were literally 25 feet from Elon the entire time.
Right.
And when the Model Y finally drove out as the end of the word sexy, there it was right in front of us. So that was really, really cool. And being there in the moment was just so exciting.
Right.
All right, so let's cover the interior first. As soon as the car came out on stage, everyone kind of rushed to the back where they were giving out a ride in the only Model Y that was actually driving. And we were lucky enough to get one of the first rides. So one of the first things we experienced in the car had to be pointed out to us because it was dark out.
Right. Here's the thing. It's a panoramic glass roof. Now, the Model 3 has a beautiful glass roof, but just about halfway through between, where the front windshield comes up to meet and all the way down at the back, somewhere around here, if you're sitting in the back, there's a pillar that goes across, or a cross beam, and kind of breaks up that view. In the Model Y, there's two on either side, so you get this gigantic piece of glass that goes all the way across the roof, and it's gorgeous. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
We could barely see it because it was dark outside.
Right.
So when you looked up, luckily the moon was out, so I could see the moon to make sure that it was actually a roof. But we're in LA, so there's no stars to see, and it's tinted. I think that was kind of a missed opportunity. I think that what we should have done was either had the event during the day, So that way you could have actually seen the sky in it, because it would have been breathtaking. Or I think we should have driven under a simulated sky or some bright lights, like a big archway of very bright lights, to get a sense of how luxurious it is going to feel to sit in the backseat of this car.
Yeah, I mean, they had a VR experience at the event where you could put VR goggles on and look around, but come on, that's not the same, and we can't demonstrate that.
I can't show that.
Right.
You can't really stick the camera into the VR headset and give you that same experience.
I mean, you're seeing footage now of us in the interior as we drove, and we did our best to show you stuff, but take our word for it, the glass roof is a major aspect of this car, and it wasn't something that was really talked about in his speech.
And there's no pictures of it. We have the press kit,
right?
And there's no pictures sitting in the back seat looking up at this glass roof. It's going to be astounding. I have not seen a car that has this.
I sat in the middle row. Jesse sat in the front, and I got to say the middle row felt even better than it does in a Model X. So right now, black interior is standard, and if you want the black and white interior, which looks like this, that is an additional $1,000.
How do we know how much that costs?
Because you can order it.
You can order the car.
Yeah.
Right now.
We're going to talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
But let's keep going here. The one other choice you get is whether you want it to be a 5-seater or a 7-seater. Now, 7-seater is an additional $3,000, and we're going to talk a bit about the 3 seats coming up. But before we do, let's get to the exterior, because there's a couple cool features there. Now, first of all, you're taking a look here at what looks like a Model 3. It's not. It's the Model Y.
Right.
It's built on the same platform, so the ground clearance seems to be about the same as a Model 3, but when you get in the car, you're on raised seats. But the cool feature I want to point out to you here, Jesse, is what?
The door handles are all blacked out, and the trim, too, also blacked out.
As opposed to the model, and any of the other models, actually, which have a chrome trim. So I don't know if this is legit or not, but this is what comes from Tesla's website. So
on the order page.
Yeah, I mean, this is on the order page, so I got to imagine that's what they've done. That's an interesting choice, I think, to differentiate it maybe from the Model 3. And just to mention the look of it, I mean, everyone has their own aesthetic tastes, but I think the Model 3 is a great looking car. It's the kind of car that looks better in person. Now that it's out in the roads, you know what I'm talking about. It looks good on a picture, but it looks stunning up close. Same thing with the Model Y. It looks great on a picture, but when you're next to it, it looks even better. So another thing you're going to get a choice with is, just like with the Model 3, you're going to have to decide if you want autopilot, which is $3,000, or if you also want to get full self-driving, which is an additional $5,000. If you want both, obviously that's $8,000. If you buy them after the fact, the autopilot would be $4,000 and the full self-driving will be $7,000, so that would be a total of $11,000. And that number is going to come into play later. All right, so you're probably wondering, what are the specs on this car? And here's what we got. We got 4 different models to choose from. The one that probably everyone wants the most is the $39,000 model, and that's going to come out the last. So let's look at what's going to come out first. The performance, the long range, and the all-wheel drive.
Right. So the performance will cost $60,000. It'll come out fall 2020. It'll have a 0 to 60 of 3.5, which is fantastic. It'll have 280 miles of range, and it'll have a top speed of 150 miles an hour. That is awesome. I mean, for that price, those specs are just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Then we go to the dual motor all-wheel drive. It is 280 miles, again, 135 miles an hour, 0 to 60 in 4.8. Cost $51,000. Long range, 300 miles, 130 miles an hour top speed, 0 to 60 in 5.5, $47,000. And the base model, or the standard range, is 230 miles of range, 120 miles an hour, 0 to 60 in 5.9 seconds, and $39,000. Starting in spring 2021.
So the big question on everyone's mind, I think, was when he mentioned that there'll be a third row seat. First of all, I thought going into this, if he could squeeze a third row seat into this car, that would be huge. He did it. Problem is, we weren't able to see it. I mean, we got in the car, but the third row seat was folded down and no one was allowed to sit in it, and no one was allowed to open the hatch. So we don't know exactly what it feels like to sit in it. I got to say, my first impressions, just looking over the rear seat into that space, is that it's a tiny space. Now, I'm judging this based on the Model X, which has a tiny third row in which you'd only want to put small people in.
Right.
And I got to say, third row seat in the Model Y, in my opinion, from what I've seen, looks like it'll only be for small people and children.
Right. And I mean, I think that's kind of common for most third row seats. It's not like let us get in the, it's not a limousine. Most cars aren't limousines. You don't have that third row seat that's like, oh, I'm a, 6 foot tall person. Let me just squeeze in back there.
Right.
Because you're really squeezing into any third row seat. We don't know how big this is, but it looks pretty small. However, I think that for some cases, it makes sense to have a third row seat.
All right, so the next question that a lot of people are going to ask is, what does the height feel like? Because being up high in an SUV is one of the things that makes them attractive to a lot of people. It obviously doesn't feel like you're sitting in a Model 3 because, as the driver told us, they've put the seats on risers. But the basic platform of the Model 3 is the same, so they put the seats up. And so, yeah, you're basically up a few inches from a Model 3. I can't explain it much better than that at the moment. So it makes it a lot easier to get in and out of. The Model 3, I will say the hard thing for me, maybe because I'm older, is that getting into the Model 3 is like hard to get in and hard to get out of. The Model Y felt normal to get in and out of. All right, so we were, for the test ride, in a dual motor long range Model Y. We went for about a 90-second test ride, so not that long. But we did a slalom a couple times. And how did you think it felt?
It felt almost identical to the Model 3, which is to say amazing. It has really nice and tight suspension, so it didn't feel very sloppy. A lot of CUVs, SUVs, you kind of feel that whole car body roll kind of thing where the whole car seems to pitch and roll with you. Being in almost any Tesla is like being in a spaceship, and the Model 3 and the Model Y now, no exception. And that's because it's built, again, on the same platform.
Yeah, low center of gravity. Just because your seat's up higher, still the center of gravity of the car is about in the same place.
Right, just about everything that weighs a lot is still really low. And I really liked how it handled. And the acceleration, also, impressive.
Yeah.
This was, it was a 0 to 60 in 4.9, 0 to 60, and it felt great.
Now, our buddy Jeff, who is 6'7", kept asking me, make sure you check the height of, of sitting in the car. Well, our driver happened to be 6'7", and so you can probably see.
He didn't look 6'7" in the seat.
No, I mean, he had a lot of headroom left over. That's why I was surprised to find that out.
And a lot of leg room.
Right.
I noticed that, when Jeff was sitting in the Model 3, his legs did stick up quite comically to where it's kind of knocking into the screen. This is completely different because now you have almost more room because you're not laid down. You're a bit higher. So I think it's going to be an ideal tall person car.
So I was really disappointed because we were not given the opportunity to, first of all, open the hatchback. We would have loved to have had a Model Y just sitting there where you could get into it and just sit in any seat you want, fold things down, open up the front, open up the hatch. That was not available,
right?
Because obviously they haven't gotten to that point yet.
Right.
But even just being able to open the hatchback would have been nice to look and see what the space looked like, to see what the third row looked like. None of that was available.
Right, because there should be a lot of cargo room. And it's going to be, the Model 3 is already, you can fit a ton of stuff in it. The trunk on it is enormous. Having more space inside the car, especially with that hatchback, it's going to be vacuous. You're going to be able to play a game of football back there practically. Like, it's enormous. I would have loved to see what it looks like with the hatch open. We do have some pictures here to show you. One is from a teaser video. The other one is from Tesla's website. So you can see what the back looks like. Again, we don't get to see what that third row seat looks like.
So let's compare the cargo space in the Model Y to some other CUVs on the market. If we compare it to the Subaru Forester or the Honda CR-V, both of those cars have 75 cubic feet of space versus the Model Y's 66 cubic feet of space. So you might be saying to yourself, oh, well, then it has less than other CUVs. But if you compare it to like the RAV4 or the Honda HR-V, those have less. Right. As you can see here, 36 and 57 cubic feet. So it's right in line with other cars in its class.
Which is amazing because it doesn't look like a lot of those cars in its class. The RAV4 and the CR-V, they're much higher off the ground. They're much bigger and bulkier shaped. And I think it's amazing that a car that can be mistaken for a Model 3 can have this much cargo space.
Yeah. So let's do some price comparisons here. So we see that basically the lowest price Model Y will be $39,000, and that'll come out in 2021. And here's a list of other CUVs that are out there. And as you can see, at the lower end, you've got ones that come in around $22,000. And at the higher end, you've got like the BMW X1 and the Volvo XC40, which start at around $35,000 and go up to about $37,000, $38,000. So many people might be saying, well, I mean, this is more expensive than those. What do you say to that?
I would say, I mean, while it's true that, you know, the price that you pay is going to be more expensive, if you're trading in one of those cars, you're going to be saving a lot on gas. You're going to be saving a lot on maintenance. And, you know, this car just has much better performance than all of those other cars.
It's probably going to last a lot longer.
I've got to imagine that, you know, there's no transmission, there's no exhaust system, there's no timing belt, there's no head gasket. None of these things are going to go. So that, I think, is a really strong point for the Model Y.
Now, another strong point, I think, is that most of these other SUVs get an average of 22 to 34 miles per gallon, city to highway. The Model Y, we don't know the exact specs yet, but if it is 10% heavier than the Model 3, should get about 115 miles in the city, 105 miles in the highway, miles per gallon equivalent. Obviously, no gas.
Equivalent is important there because there's no gas in the car. And I think that is an important fact. So not only is it 3 to 4 times more efficient as a vehicle, but you're not burning gas. You're not polluting both the air you breathe and the atmosphere of the earth. So you're not contributing to climate change. And a lot of people will be like, oh, it depends on where you get your electricity. You can get your electricity from clean, sustainable sources, even if you don't put solar panels on your house.
Yeah, and most states, as we've already shown many times before, have cleaner energy than you think. So you're actually way cleaner by buying an electric car.
And all states, that is true.
So the biggest feature, I think, though, that was only mentioned quickly in Elon's presentation is safety. Now, I know he probably couldn't have said anything definitive because this hasn't been tested yet. But if it's anything like the Model 3 is the safest car in the world.
Right. Let's just say that one more time, just because, you know, maybe you were spacing out or something like that. The Model 3 is the safest car in the world.
Now, the Model Y is basically the Model 3 up a little higher. So we expect that it's probably going to get similar safety ratings, which will probably make it the safest CUV in the world.
Right. Which means that for people with families who are looking for a CUV, the Model Y could be the strongest contender because what do you want if you're putting your family in something? You want it to be safe.
Right. I mean, I would argue even more so than the Model 3 because in general, the Model 3 is kind of the car that one of you will drive to work or do something in. Whereas the Model Y is the car you're more likely to put your entire family in. And you, of course, would then make safety obviously the number one priority. Right. So can you put a price on that? I don't know. I don't think so.
Can you put a price on your family? Just sit down. Yeah. Just take out a little notebook.
And a calculator.
And a calculator. Just write down. You know, how much is Timmy worth? How much is Joey? How much is your wife or your husband worth to you? You know, just jot that number down, add it all together.
And I kind of wish that Elon had made a bigger point of safety in his remarks. I mean, I know he said the words that it will be safe, but
he didn't. Yeah, I mean, again, it wasn't tested or anything like that. But yes, to talk about the points that people care about who are going to be buying this car.
Right.
He glossed over safety. He glossed over autopilot. He's like, oh, and autopilot and all that jazz. Like, no. Explain what that is. You just explained the whole history of Tesla because that's important, right? You now need to explain autopilot completely and clearly. And he was excited that it was going to, you know, they were going to have feature complete autopilot. But for the most people, feature complete doesn't mean anything.
Right.
And also because feature complete doesn't mean that it's going to be in our cars.
Right.
It just means that the developer version of the software, so some car owned by Tesla, some experimental car is allowed to drive using, you know, no one in the driver's seat. But for the rest of us, we don't have access to that. That's something that Elon is very excited about, where he shouldn't be telling everyone like, oh, feature complete. Like, we don't care. There's tons of stuff that's feature complete that we don't get access to.
Let's talk about release dates and placing an order. So it's important that if you're thinking about getting this car, that you understand when it will come in. For the 3 models, the long range, the performance, and the all-wheel drive, those will come in fall of 2020. But again, the model that probably most people want to get, including myself, the standard range, that's going to come in spring of 2021. That's kind of a ways off. So let's talk about if you wanted to place an order. Because that night, I opened the app, and I started scrolling and I was going to hit place the order, but I didn't yet. The reason I didn't is because you can't place an order yet for the standard range Model Y. Mm-hmm. If you want to place an order for the other three, there's a $2,500 pre-order payment, which is refundable. And here's what it means. If you place that order and any time before they start building your car, if you want your money back, you can get it back. Once they've started making your car, obviously, you can't. Mm-hmm. And you can also change your mind about things like color or which model you want up until when they actually start building your car. So that's good to know. So if you want to get in line for those cars, you might want to consider ordering now. So personally, I think I want the standard Model Y, which will be $39,000. I think I would probably want to get full self-driving and autopilot, so that would bring it up to $44,000. And then probably want to get, maybe a different color or maybe a different interior. So probably going to throw another $1,000 or $2,000 at it.
Right.
Because that's what I'm thinking. I already got the Model X. I don't need another luxury SUV type thing. So I would probably be looking for that lower price Model Y. I'm going to conjecture that many people will sign up for the Model Y eventually, but I don't think we'll see the same numbers sign up as we did for the Model 3. And I don't want everyone to get freaked out when this happens, if it does happen. Remember that when the Model 3 was announced, 400,000 people or so signed up sight unseen for the car, put down their $1,000. Well, first of all, that's different. You weren't actually ordering the car. You were putting down a refundable deposit.
Right.
Here, there's not the same urgency. Many people are already getting the Model 3. Right. If you're waiting for the Model Y, you might just say, okay, well, I'll wait till that time comes and do it. There's no feeling like it may not happen or I better get my name on the list. And also the tax credit is pretty much a non-issue here in the U.S.
Right. Especially, I would say, the Model 3, there was just nothing else out there. And a lot of people wanted to drive an electric car and couldn't because basically there was nothing that could fit their needs, right? There was nothing with the range that they needed to commute to work, plus, some other local driving. And there was definitely nothing else for road trips. I mean, the Bolt was a possible contender, and lots of people went to the Bolt because it had the range to do daily commutes and daily living around a central hub of a point, but certainly nothing good for road trips. And
right.
I would argue, to this day, there really isn't anything you can truly buy for the same price as the Model 3 that can do that. And everyone was, excited about the base Model 3. A lot of those people got their cars. I think that there's going to be a lot of people who just don't have the time to be thinking about cars, who are going to, start to have families or already have a family and say, gee, I need a new car. And, oh, I heard about the Model Y. You can, at some point, hopefully they can, take a look at it, decide that they like it, and decide to buy it.
Now, I think there's a lot of talk about margins at Tesla. Can Tesla make money selling the base Model Y for $39,000? Here's my thing. I think there's some secret sauce here, which is autopilot and full self-driving. So a lot of people like you buy the base model and don't get autopilot or full self-driving and keep it as cheap as possible, right? Drive off the lot and you're happy. And then a few weeks later, you get a trial version of autopilot and full self-driving, and that lasts, 2 weeks?
A whole month.
Oh, a whole month. Okay, so you get to experience autopilot and all its features. And I think for a lot of people, at some point after they bought this low-price car, they are going to look to add autopilot and full self-driving. Now, when that happens, for that small percentage of people that might do it, we're talking about an extra $4,000 for autopilot or an extra $7,000 for full self-driving, which would be $11,000, that Tesla gets as a basically free bonus to them.
Right. And let's keep in mind that in the future, as their full self-driving technology develops, and so pretty soon there's going to be stoplights and stop sign intersection ability, which is amazing.
Enhanced summon.
Enhanced summon is going to be another great feature. And then also in the future, there's going to be, just full autonomy. We don't know to what degree, but autonomy where you might not have to touch the wheel the whole ride to grandma's house.
So when that day happens,
right,
$11,000, pretty much anyone who can afford it will turn on that option.
Right. And I think that they can also continue to raise the price. As
Sure.
more features come in, I mean, right now it's $5,000 for full self-driving. That gets you drive on nav and advanced summon. Are those worth $5,000 right now? Kind of. Advanced summon sounds really cool.
But again, it sounds cool. We haven't seen it.
Exactly.
I think when we start seeing it, people are going to want it even
Right.
more. And so here's my other point. If you sell your car, the next owner might want it.
Exactly.
And
because-
say, oh, I'm going to turn that on for $11,000.
Right.
You might give it to one of your kids and they might want it. Like, there's so many opportunities for Tesla to add on to the margin of this car long after they sold it. What other car company can do that?
And also, they can raise the price. They can also lower the price to get people like me who couldn't afford to spend an extra, $8,000 when I was buying the car to get autopilot. I have more time to save, right? So after you buy the car, you'd have more time to save up to buy a feature like this. And they could, have sales sort of like what they just did.
I don't know if they want to do that
people-
again.
To get people in at a lower price point who wouldn't be able to allocate, $11,000 to buy that feature.
Well, and keep in mind, these cars don't age the same way that other cars do. I mean, so if you have one of these cars after 3 or 4 years, it's still getting over-the-air software updates. And so it's still kind of a new car, and you don't want to miss out on getting a feature like autopilot. And so you're very likely to want to save up and get it.
Right.
I think that's a super big point that most analysts don't pick up on. A car company that it can keep making money long after it sold you the car. All right, so the day after the event, as Jesse mentioned at the top of the show, we got a lot of this FUD about, well, people are nonplussed about the car. So here's my question. We were one of 500 or 600 people in the room that experienced the car.
Mm-hmm.
I understand you can see pictures of the car and you can be nonplussed by it, sure. But if you didn't experience it, you're just looking at a picture.
Right. I don't think that a lot of people understand what it means. I think a lot of people wanted it to look different. It looks so similar to the Model 3. I think that some people are like, oh, I wanted it to look different. And I'm here to tell you it doesn't matter. It looks great. Okay? If you were to have never seen the Model 3 before and suddenly, boom, Model Y appears in front of you, I think you're going to be like, okay, this looks cool. And secondly, it's a lot of things that people who drive Model 3s wanted. It is a hatchback. A lot of people said, man, I wish it was just a Model 3 with a hatchback. Bingo, you got it.
Right.
There it is, folks.
Yeah.
The Model 3 with a hatchback.
Or I said, I wish it was a little higher seating.
Right. Bingo, presto, kapow. There it is. Or, gee, I would just wish it had more seats. Right. It's all those things. And you don't have to have 7 seats. That's an optional package, which means that you can have what I am going to assume is a ton of rear space.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you could sleep in the back.
Absolutely.
And
you can sleep in the back with 7 seats,
Right.
which is exciting.
Exactly. Now, a lot of people probably said, I wish it had Falcon Wing doors like the X.
Right.
Well, if he had come out and said, look at this, I did Falcon Wing doors, you know what the FUD would be the next day? How's he going to build it cheaply enough?
Right.
How's he going to build it in time?
And they wouldn't have been able to build it cheaply enough. And also, the big thing that everyone misses is the 70% parts similar with the Model 3. This means that with a lot of their existing infrastructure, a lot of their existing lines, stuff that they've spent, blood and tears trying to learn how to build the Model 3 efficiently, they have it baked in.
Right.
Which means that when they start to bring it to market, it's going to be a piece of cake.
Yep.
Okay? That is huge.
Their suppliers are going to be so similar. Like, the suppliers are going to be able to make, first of all, 70% the same parts.
Exactly.
But even the ones that are different are going to be so similar, it's going to be easy to get those suppliers to make those parts and make them cheap.
Right. Let's talk about the interface. The UI is going to be exactly the same. Well, there's going to be different pictures. There's going to be, a few different things. There might be a few sensors that are different for the back seatbelt buckle sensor. But aside from that, not much of a difference.
Exactly.
And again, this car has a giant glass roof, which is gorgeous.
Yep.
They know how to do tinting. They've done the tinting properly in the Model 3. I wish that I could get rid of the tinting just so you could just experience it, but obviously you need sun protection.
Right.
So they've opted for that, and they did a great job. You don't hear anyone complaining about Model 3 being like, it's so much sun. None of that, right? You get, it's going to be a fantastic.
Well, let's talk about what it's going to be. Let's look ahead. So, if we go to the end of next year, we're probably going to be done with all the testing on the Model Y, and it's probably going to be the safest CUV on the market. That's another mic drop, I feel, for Tesla, that all their cars are the safest.
Right.
Then we're also probably going to start seeing the CUV appear as the best-selling car in the US. And shortly after that, as the best-selling CUV in Europe. And then shortly after that, the best-selling CUV in China. I'm saying this based on the Model 3.
Right.
And the fact that CUVs are even better classes of cars in terms of sales than the sedans.
At this point in history, for whatever reason.
Right. So I think if we fast forward a year and a half, that's where we're going to be with Tesla, and that's where we're going to be with the Model Y. I think that's an exciting place to be.
Overall, I think that it is a vehicle to be excited about. It's definitely not as groundbreaking as the Model 3, because the Model 3 came out and it's just like, wow, this is a car that, can actually function as a car, and it costs something that isn't completely out of everyone's price range. I mean, a $35,000 car, I know that just came out, but still amazing. We're talking, if you're looking at it's average for new cars.
This is a first-time car company doing this.
Right.
They haven't had decades of experience on how to get the cost down on things. It is amazing that they're able to come out with the car as fast as they have. Right. Everyone says, well, Elon, you were late in doing it. So what? He did it.
And we haven't seen competition rising up for the Model Y. There's a lot of Model 3 killers, which haven't killed the Model 3 yet.
Exactly. Where's a 7-seater CUV electric that's coming out for $39,000 in 2021?
And we could do a whole in-depth on talking about where are the Tesla killers. Lots of people have talked about where are the Tesla killers. There are no Tesla killers.
Right.
Not even a Model S killer. The Porsche hasn't even come out yet.
Right.
And even then, will it kill the Model S?
Right.
We'll see.
And this is a platform that works. I mean, the Model 3 is out there now. Everyone loves it, and they're building this car on that platform.
It's going to have version 3 supercharging.
Yeah.
No one talked about that.
I know. This is quite an amazing car. So that's why we're so pumped. We were there, we experienced it, and we really spent a lot of time preparing for this event to make sure that we covered it for you. So if you haven't checked out our live stream of it, you're going to get to see some angles that you didn't see on the Tesla live stream, and then some things they didn't show you, like our test drive in the car.
Right.
So, that's up there too. I hope you check that out. And I just want to say a big thank you to everyone that came up to us at the event. We had dozens and dozens of people from around the world come up to us and thank us and shake our hand and take selfies and stuff. And it really pumped a lot of energy back into us, because that takes a lot out of you.
And please send us your pictures of us.
Yes.
We didn't take any pictures of each other during the event. We have no proof that we were there practically, other than the live stream. But most of the time, the camera was not facing me.
Right.
It was facing the pretty cars.
Right.
So thank you so much for watching this episode of In Depth. We really hope you enjoyed it. Again, yes, so much work went into making sure that we were at the event, there on time,
batteries charged,
at the front row, live streaming for the entire event as much as we possibly could.
Huge shout out to our buddy Ross, who made sure that we were first in line. It takes people like that to make this team work. So thank you so much, everybody. And thank you for watching the episode.
Now you know.